This is Vocational Service Month in Rotary, and I earlier passed out our guiding principles, which give us a clue to what vocational service means in Rotary, although it's a kind of a hard thing to define because it permeates just about everything we do. But if you look at the second object of Rotary, which is our underlying principle, it says that we're to encourage and foster high ethical standards in business and professions. We're to encourage and foster the recognition of the worthiness of all useful occupations and the dignifying of each Rotarian's occupation as an opportunity to serve society. I think what that means is to use our occupations in a way that can serve society. Let's talk about them in order. There's three elements to that. The first one is high ethical standards. We use our high ethical standards right at the beginning of everything we do with our four-way test. And I don't know if everybody realizes it, but the four-way test came to Rotary back in 1932 from a Rotarian member who was struggling with a bankrupt company. And he formulated that test as a way to help him evaluate what to do with this struggling company. And Rotary adopted it in 1934 as one of our basic principles, and we've been using it ever since. In Rotary, we have classifications. We all enter Rotary getting a classification of some kind related to our occupation or our profession, and it's something that we contribute to the club. We are diverse members. We have different perspectives, different experiences, and different talents that we can bring to the different projects that we undertake. And of course, one of the things we do as Rotarians is learn about each other's business. And as classified members, we get the opportunity to give craft talks where we can explain what we do, and people can see what our experiences are and how they can relate to our Rotary activities. The name Rotary came from rotating locations of meetings, because in the early days they would rotate meetings to different members' places of business. It's something we could still do today, but generally we don't. I'd like to give you a couple of specific recommendations that RI has given us in terms of how to promote ethics and honesty and integrity in our business relationships. One is to make sure we use honest language. One of the most important things a leader can impart to his or her organization is an honest and explicit use of language. Euphemisms are not good. They can lead to unintended, unethical consequences. And the power of language is important to make a clear statement of what our intentions are. Don't use things like competitive advantage or strategic business practices when it could be misinterpreted and lead people to use techniques or practices that you really wouldn't want them to. And in your relationships with your colleagues, your employees, you need to insist on proper behavior. Behavior results from values, but values can result from behavior too. And we need to make ethical practices a standard component of employee performance and our relationship with others. And also, refuse to allow gray areas. We need to be absolute in our relationship to ethics and integrity, and not make it unclear to people what we really stand for. Now, integrity and ethics is important as an individual, but what do we do as a club? How can we as a club support these values that Rotary has made essential? Well, one thing we could do as a club is we could dedicate some time to have a discussion about this. Maybe we should sit down one day and talk about the four-way test and the code of conduct on the back of your sheet, and talk about what it really means. I mean, how do we apply it every day? What happens when we get into gray areas in business, when somebody says, well, let's do this, it doesn't meet our normal procedures, but I think we can get away with it. How do you deal with those situations? One thing we can do as a club is spend a little time talking about it. We could have a workshop on ethics. We can invite other people in and say we want to discuss ethics in the workplace, and let's bring in non-Rotarians to do that too. A lot of clubs sponsor essays or speech contests. That's something we could do, although it may be something that already is being done on a larger scale, and maybe we can look for something a little more unique for our club since we have our internet format. We could also give an award to someone in the community. Now, the Sherman Oaks Club did that several years ago. We gave an award to a firefighter and a policeman who were nominated by their superiors as representing high ethical standards in their workplace. And that's a way we as a Rotary Club can engage the community in recognition of high standards, which we want to promote in ourselves and in others. The second component of that object of Rotary was to recognize the worthiness of all useful occupations. I mean, we celebrate work and the benefits to society that work creates. How can we do that as a club? What can we do? Well, one thing we do is classification talks. You know, we can have these talks where we let people explain what they do. We can learn about different occupations. Each of us has skills and experiences that can benefit the rest of us. And it may be that somebody has an idea for a project and they can hear some experience that another member has, and the two can become together in some kind of useful project for the club. We can tour member workplaces. Now, I'm not sure how many workplaces we have that would be a good place to have a club tour, but we don't know because we haven't really talked to each other so much about what we do. But if we do spend a little time on craft talks, and we're going to have a couple today to get started, then maybe we'll get there. We'll get to the point where we can say, well, let's have a meeting at this member's place of business. Let's see what they do. You know, how do they relate to the broader world out there, and how do they support the community? You could join a Rotary Fellowship. You go online to rotary.org/fellowship. There are fellowships of people probably in your profession or with your similar interests that you could communicate with, and you could find new members, or not new members, but members elsewhere that you could join up with and maybe brainstorm or work on a project. We could also network with non-Rotarians. We could have a networking event if we wanted as one of our club activities. Get involved with other people in the community in similar professions, or just in general to broaden our horizon in terms of what people do out there and how we can work together. And how do we use our occupations as a way to serve society? I think that's the bottom line. Rotary is service above self. Well, we work from the idea that we want to celebrate occupations and productivity to the next issue, which is how do we use all that to help society? Well, we as a club can do that by undertaking specific projects where we use our talents. You know, we've done some general projects so far, like the food drive, which doesn't involve a particular talent, but maybe there are some special talents we have here, like the internet programs we create with Mel and our online programs, but things like that where we could leverage our individual talents to do something unique as a club project. We can help guide and career counsel younger people. Young people need mentoring. They need advice from people in different professions so they can see, you know, what they might want to do and maybe help get them started. We can sponsor a vocational training team. That's a new Rotary Foundation focus where people get together in a particular profession to either go learn somewhere else or teach somewhere else. Now that's kind of a big project to bite off for a small club like ours at the moment, but maybe that's something we can use down the road. And as an individual, you can actually register on the club website under rotary.org/project link as a volunteer. If you have particular talents that might be helpful to another club that's looking for help, you can go online on the website and try and find a match where you can volunteer for other projects. I'd like to just finish by quoting something from a former president of RI about vocational service. And what he said is, no aspect of Rotary is more closely related to each member than a personal commitment to represent one's vocation or occupation to fellow Rotarians and to exemplify the characteristics of high ethical standards and dignity of work. That's what we're about, high ethical standards and the dignity of what we do. Vocational service programs seek to improve business relations while improving the quality of trades, industry, commerce, and the professions. Each of us makes a valuable contribution to a better society through daily activities in our business and profession. And regardless of the way we express the term vocational service, it's a banner by which we recognize the worthiness of all useful occupations. So when you see it on here as the second item under the object of Rotary, you can see how important it is, even though we tend not to talk about it a lot. So that's the introduction to what vocational service is. It's hard to define, but it's all around us and it's part of what we are. And we have 2 craft talks today. Mel, do you want me to introduce them? Or I'll let Mel Powell introduce our craft talks